The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Boulder. We got a great show for you today. I have to introduce my guests first. Greg Buchanan, my co-host, CPCA radio announcer, as well as the Junior B Bandits general manager. How are you?
Not too bad, Moses, not too bad.
Excellent. We got a great week for you. You're coming up. And you, my friend, how you doing today?
Not bad. Finally got called up to the big leagues.
Hey, there you go. Kyle Gallagher, weekend sports anchor, I guess we're an egg reporter. You could throw in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And now you could add Gloves guest to your resume.
Top of the list.
All right. We'll start off with a serious note. Of course, the Boston Marathon, the tragedy that happened involving the two men that injured several people, including killing 3 innocent lives. I do want to get to the security aspect of this. Now, are we going to see a revamp or a change the way we view sporting events or events from now on, kind of like we've seen after 9/11 with travel?
You know what? Because the Boston Marathon's unique. It's on the streets of Boston. How do you set up security checks? That's going to be kind of unique that way. When you have a closed, confined space like in a stadium, an arena, it's a little easier to control your security. I think for Boston Marathon it's unique, but yeah, unfortunately, they're going to have to do something in all these events. It'd be interesting to see what happens in Vancouver in a few weeks' time when they have their big marathon and how they're going to deal with that security issues.
London
London
vamped
just had
theirs up,
yeah.
and they had theirs, and it went off without a hitch, luckily. But are we going to see it, like just our main sporting events that we'll see with baseball? Of course, not just in Boston, but we're going to talk about globally. You'll find that if you go to Maple Leaf Gardens, of course, or Air Canada Centre, I should say. Going out to Vancouver, the Canucks, their postseason play. Are we going to see a revamp or a change in any shape or form?
I don't know. The closed events, like you were saying, it's a lot easier to do it. Most bags get checked. I know people with big jackets even get checked. I mean, unless they're installing metal detectors, I don't know what more you can do for stuff like hockey or basketball games. But marathons would be a lot tougher, though, because people can just watch them anywhere. They're going to have to check windows then, I guess. It's in the streets, so that would be a lot harder to do. But I don't know. I guess you'd have to just based on what happened this past week.
I want to get to the good part of this. And, of course, sports has been known as a great healer. It's known to bring people together. David Ortiz, a prime example of that. Even the FCC allowing him to say a few expletives in there. But in all honesty, how can sports help, especially within the Boston community, with the Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins?
It just helps people, I don't want to say forget, but try to put that, we're going to move forward from this. 2 crackpots that are going to do that to your city, they're not going to stop us from having a baseball game, having a hockey game, having a basketball game. They're going to move forward, and that's all you can do.
Well, even the game between Buffalo and Boston on the Wednesday after, I mean, the anthem singer had to say, the first 3 lines maybe of the national anthem, and the crowd took over. And when you have 18,000 people and however many 100,000 watching at home, I mean, right there, that kind of unites you. It makes you feel better. I mean, everyone's kind of doing it together. The Red Sox didn't have Red Sox in their jersey on Saturday. They had Boston. So I think sports is, a lot with the healing process. You have 15 to 30,000 all people together and, kind of heal as a group, I guess.
You look back at 9/11 too, Yankees, playing shortly after 9/11 and how emotional that was. And I'm not a big Yankees fan, but you get a little bit of lump in your throat when you see that.
It was nice to see the gesture, not just from the Yankees, but all the teams in Major League Baseball sing Sweet Caroline, which is synonymous with the Boston Red Sox. I do want to get to the Toronto Maple Leafs here. Just to put this in perspective, Bruce Arthur from the National Post said it best. He said that this will be the first time the Leafs will be playing a playoff game in high definition. Also, they'll be playing a playoff game while there's social media. There was no YouTube. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. Does that shock you guys a little bit?
No. Knowing Toronto, the Maple Leafs have been like that forever, and you know what? It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the playoffs, but nonetheless, there's going to be a lot of people in Toronto. The tickets are going to be prime, if there is no tickets available, probably.
I'm excited just to be on social media and see what happens, whether they win or lose, because there's going to be a lot of people who haven't been a fan really. If you were 6 or 7, you're a lot older now, and you're finally able to experience it. It's going to be pretty funny to follow along on Twitter to see what the fans
You can look at some of the players too, like Nazem Kadri. I think you said he was like 10 or 11 or something like that. Not even when they last made the playoffs. Can they actually make a decent effort? Can they get past the first round?
I would say they could. They've got a pretty solid team. I mean, they've got a lot of depth up front with scoring. Depending on how deep they go and if Lupul can come back, that's another big thing. But they've got a lot of gritty forwards with McLaren and Orr. I mean, they've got a bunch of high-scoring forwards. They've got some good defense now. Reimer is the only question mark, I would say, but he did have a pretty solid season, so I would say they can probably go a few rounds.
You know, I'm kind of a big numbers kind of guy. And you look at the stats, penalty kill, they're one of the best. Power play is not too bad. But 5-on-5 goals against, only 3 other teams in the entire NHL are worse. That's a shocking stat. So if you go in the playoffs and you can't play 5-on-5, you're in trouble.
Next question for you guys is Brian Burke, and I just want a yes or no from you guys. Does he take any credit for the Leafs?
I would say yes.
And Greg?
I hate to say it, but yes.
Okay, so now his stock has risen. There's rumors that are going around. This started around January, and now it's starting to resurface again, that he has a good friend in Joe Nieuwendyk. Of course, they work together in Toronto. That he might be the next GM or assistant GM or help in any way with the Dallas Stars. Do you see him ending up in Dallas?
All these guys are recycled. Steve Tambellini just fired last week at Edmonton. Guess what? He's going to land on his feet somewhere. Brian Burke is, as much as, not exactly the easiest guy to get along with, but yeah, he'll land on his feet and will probably end up in Dallas.
I'm not a big fan of Brian Burke, but he is a good GM. You got to give him that. And Dallas is kind of in a weird spot right now. I mean, they made some moves last offseason. Didn't really work out. They traded Derek Roy already. They got rid of Yager already. They do have some good pieces in, say, Eriksson or
Ben as well.
Yeah, exactly, like Jamie Benn. So I think Brian Burke could fit in well there, especially with Nieuwendyk as a team. They can maybe bring them back to the playoffs.
And I don't know if he is a good GM. That's the thing where people say, well, but he's a good GM. What did he do in Toronto? He came into a Toronto organization that was young at the time. He traded away a lot of those young guys and traded for and signed some free agents that let you scratch in your head. So you wonder, is he really that good? He was handed a pretty good team in Anaheim, took him to the Stanley Cup, won a cup there. Had a pretty good team in Vancouver, really didn't do anything there.
He did draft the Sedins. Didn't he not bring in Marcus Naslund as well?
Yeah, where do they go from there?
Well, I'm just saying, he made some good moves. I'm not justifying what he did in Toronto. Toronto, you're absolutely right.
Toronto,
he's made some questionable decisions, but
some of his free agent
he has
signings
been known to make some solid ones.
He made a few solid ones every once in a while, but at the end of the day, he was handed a great team in Anaheim, won a cup, and kind of built his career from that. And in Toronto, he was a guy that wanted to be the face of the franchise, and I'm not a big fan of a general manager that thinks he should be in front of the camera more than his players.
From one GM to another. I don't know if you want to end this off real quick.
I would just say I would be all for it. I mean, he's going to end up somewhere, so Dallas might as well scoop him up.
Yeah, could have been better in Edmonton, maybe considering the situation there. But
he's not
an ex-Oiler, so that was the main issue of Burke not going to Edmonton. Hey, we are going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have more topics to talk about in just a little bit.